Hello, and welcome to the Mindful Coping Podcast, Amplifying Voices, where I feature various voices in the mental health community to create safe spaces of dialogue and growth. I'm Rhys, a 16-year-old teenager from Southern California, diagnosed with Tourette syndrome and OCD, and I founded Mindful Coping, a platform dedicated to providing free and accessible resources for teens with mental illness. You can check out my content on my Instagram at Mindful Coping and my website, mindfulcoping.net. And today, I'm so thankful to be joined with Madeleine from That's So OCD. Without further ado, Madeleine, could you give us a brief introduction about yourself?
Hi, I'm Madeleine. I'm 18 years old and I was diagnosed with sudden onset severe OCD at the age of 6. I've recently created a blog called That's So OCD where I blog about my personal experiences with OCD and provide information and resources to educate the larger community about OCD.
Wonderful. It's so nice to have you here today, Madeleine. My
Thanks
next
for having
question for you is how have you been managing your mental health during quarantine?
me. Well, I think everyone can say quarantine has been rough. I think not only for people struggling with mental health illnesses, but for everyone. And for me and my mental health, getting out and not staying home all day is definitely something that helps me. So that's been really challenging, not being able to necessarily go to a coffee shop and do work or read a book. In a way, I think that quarantine has helped me realize a lot of things about me and my mental health and where I want to go and do. Even though it's been good in that sense, though, I think it's definitely been extremely challenging having to stay home, usually not being busy, which usually leads to me thinking too much and obsessions, and then, of course, compulsions. There's also the depression piece as well, which I haven't been very vocal about yet on my blog, but it's definitely there and is something that I'm working on, especially during quarantine. Um, the ways the ways I something that I'm working on is the ways I have learned how to manage this is by keeping as busy as possible and trying to keep a relatively normal schedule throughout the day. Um, Being busy for me is like a key piece and always makes my day better in every aspect. So I like to have like a full plate, as they'd say, and push myself to see what I can do in a way. So yeah.
Wonderful. And thank you for being vulnerable and sharing that with me. I'm sure that your story will help your audience and my audience as well. So I really applaud you for your courage.
Thank you.
My next question is, do you have any specific tips you'd like to share with our audience and our readers?
A couple. I think one of the most important tips I have that I've not been best with at the past is to accept help when offered. I know you don't necessarily want to accept help all the time. Trust me, I didn't want to either, but it will make your life a lot easier and help you in the long run. I can also say, don't be afraid to try different treatments or medications. I know it can be totally scary, but you never know how it's going to impact your life. And for me personally, I've had incredible results with medication and therapy.
Yeah, I completely agree. And I was very skeptical about receiving therapy and taking medications at first, in
Yeah.
addition to my parents being highly, against it. But
Mhm.
um, I think that it's important for us to have a trust in our neurologists and our psychiatrists because they're truly there to help us. I
Definitely.
hope the majority of the time, and especially when you're diagnosed with medications. And I've had, my bout with different types of OCD and tic medicines that have really, some have helped me and some haven't. But part of that learning process is them being able to accurately gauge how your body responds to different types of medications. So,
And then trying different ones. Yeah.
exactly. So that really teaches you about your body. So regardless of whether it helps or not, it's still something valuable to try. Mhm.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah. My next question is, what specific areas of mental health interest or concern you most?
Well, I'm really focused on the stigma and the lack of education about mental illness. My whole blog is actually named around this. It's called That's So CD, which is something I constantly heard growing up, which was not easy to hear when you're struggling so much with something people are laughing about. Looking back, I'm not necessarily angry at those people. I'm more so frustrated that for some reason growing up, we don't learn about mental health illness the way we should. I really do believe that education is one of the key pieces to helping not only OCD, but the whole mental health community. And by doing this, people will feel okay to ask for help, which is a necessity to recover, as well as not keeping a big part of their life a secret, which is something I did myself for 12 years for the exact same reason.
Yeah, I completely agree with you about the education aspect. And I talked about this before with other creators, and I think that it's so sort of absurd that, if 1 in 5 Americans are dealing with a mental illness, why do we not see this type of education in public schools? Why don't we have this type of awareness training? Because um, believe it or not, like, there are people around you that may be dealing with an invisible mental illness, and your
Yep.
actions and your words can have huge consequences on the way in which they cope and deal with their illness. So I really agree with you on that education part. And
Mhm.
I'm very impressed by your blog and how much you've been educating the public about this. And even myself, I've learned a lot from reading through your blog, and how everyone's individual experience is so different. And I always like to reiterate that there's sort of the clinical aspect of mental health, like reading through the DSM-5 or reading through, specific journals about what OCD and Tourette means. But then there's also, the individual aspect, hearing people's stories that really teaches you something unique. And even, people in the mental health community, we're always learning and we're always getting new knowledge. So I think that it's super important that we have blogs like yours.
Yeah, thank you so much.
No
It's really
problem.
interesting because not everyone's mental health illness is like you can learn it by a book. It's like
Of
so
course.
different. Everyone's mental health, like their journey is just completely different. And that I don't think that's something I quite understood when I was diagnosed. So
Yeah,
that's been interesting.
completely agree. What has your journey of mental health awareness and wellness been?
Well, this is a big one. As I said, I was diagnosed with sudden onset severe OCD at the age of 6. It really came on like a light switch one day, and to me, like the next day, I was just a whole new me. When I was younger, due to circumstances beyond my control, I didn't receive necessarily the proper treatment when I should have, and things got continuously worse for a long time until I finally started receiving treatment. Basically, long story short, my journey has been really complicated and full of things that I wish happened and things that I wish didn't happen. And I've put so much hard work into getting where I am today, which is nowhere near where I want to be or where I could be, but at least it's something. OCD has completely changed me as a person, and I really don't think I'd be Madeleine, the Madeleine my friends and family know, without it. Because also I was diagnosed with OCD at such a young age. When I start to have memories, like when you start to have memories, like when you're older and you can look back in childhood, um, I don't remember anything from before I had OCD. So my whole memory is just like, it's all OCD. I can't remember a life before OCD. And that's been really hard for me, but it's something I've had to come to terms with.
Wow, that's incredible. And for me, I can't really remember a part in my life where I didn't have tics either. My OCD has been relatively new, and I was diagnosed a couple years ago. And so I can completely empathize with you with regard to not knowing what it's like to live without it. And
Yeah.
um, I write blog posts about how I deal with tics. I make Instagram posts about how I use coping mechanisms. And today I still have those very tics that I write about how to control. So
Right.
there's a part of me that feels at odds because I'm like, how can I be telling others how I've dealt with it when I haven't dealt with it yet? But,
Right.
you know,
Exactly.
yeah, I think it's part of that journey though. And being able to put pen to paper and being able to type out ways that I can help myself has given me the confidence and has given me, the ability to communicate things more clearly, which I think is so important in the mental health community, especially when
Yeah.
people don't understand it that well or don't have any background knowledge. Mhm,
Yeah, of course.
for sure.
Beautifully said.
Thank you. Thank you. My next question is, what was the inciting incident in your life that made you start wanting to promote mental health?
Well, actually, a couple years ago, when I was kind of in a bad way and really struggling, I actually attended a residential program in the USA in Wisconsin. I was there for 2 months, working my butt off to try and get my life back on track. And during that time, I met the most amazing, strong people ever. They literally became my best friends in a way that I never can really quite grasp. I think it's just because we all got each other. We were all there struggling with the same illness and in a way getting help all together. Yeah, I'll always look back on those 2 months as the hardest but most rewarding time of my life. During the whole stay and seeing all the different kids there, just like me, struggling in silence from their community, people would actually call home and calling their friends and like have to make up that they were on vacation because they didn't want to say they were getting treatment for OCD or stuff. And that's kind of the point where I was just like, okay, this is not right. Like, this should not be happening. I mean, I get it, but there really has to be like a bigger goal than this. And that's really when that's OCD, the thought of it started. And I think quarantine really recently has given it the push it needed to really start.
Incredible. And, I can totally agree with you with regards to having to make up excuses. And,
Yeah.
my friends are aware of my tics. They've seen them and they know who I am. Even then, there is sort of, an embarrassment in telling them, oh, I
Yeah.
can't make it because I'm going to therapy, or I can't make it
Right.
because I'm going to see my neurologist. And that shouldn't be there, which is,
Yeah.
I think, something that we should move towards eliminating that stigma. But I remember in middle school, not going to like a field trip or something. I think it was like a whole day field trip. And then my friend's like, why didn't you go? And I was like, oh, I was just sick, or I had the stomach flu or something like that,
Right. Yeah.
which is such an unnecessary excuse, So I think that I completely agree with you. And I can't imagine how people are, dealing with that, especially in more stigmatized societies. So I
Yeah.
really hope that we can move towards that.
Mhm.
My next question is, are some compulsions and obsessions more severe than others? And if so, how do you cope with them?
Yeah, so over the years, basically, as I tackle one specific area of my OCD, another area tends to pop up. So like throughout the years, obsessions and compulsions have varied really significantly. When I was younger, it was more focused around typically like feeling dirty. But as I grew up, that became specific with things such as one of my biggest obsessions in the past couple of years, believing that food is dirty or contaminated. I used to have to shower after I ate or touched anything that wasn't water, which was a taxing experience. Those showers were not easy for me and usually ended up badly. Over the years, though, and especially after my residential treatment, I was able to improve in this area and still really struggle with it, but I'm getting there. With coping, to be completely honest, I still haven't like figured out something that works perfectly for me. Um, but distractions always help and keeping busy so my mind isn't like thinking about things and like jumping to conclusions is always good too.
Yeah, and I want to reiterate that part where we haven't figured something out that works perfectly. And I can empathize with you because, I have dealt with various tics, and my most severe symptom of Tourette was my neck jerking tic that caused me to, have severe inflammation in my neck in middle
Mm-hmm.
school. But going to therapy, I was like I had this vision that when I came out, I'd be a perfect new me. But
Yeah.
I learned with my clinician that therapy isn't about creating a new you, but taking what is you and then working with that and making strides with that. And
Yeah.
if I can go outside in public, go do a market run without doing my neck tick in public, then that's a win for me, even if I come home and I
Right.
have that symptom, right? So
Yeah.
I consider those small steps really important.
Yeah, definitely.
Sure. My next question is a personal aspect. What steps are you taking to put you on the path to mental wellness?
Well, I have worked with and continue to work with my mental health team, which consists of my psychiatrist, psychologist, and of course, support from family. I have tried really almost every possible treatment for OCD, including all the different types of medications and therapies. So I've kind of figured out what works best for me and what I shouldn't bother with anymore, in a sense. Um, so yeah, that's kind of where I'm at.
Yeah, I definitely think that that's sort of similar across many people with mental illness, trying several things. There was even a time that I tried like fire cupping acupuncture therapy or something like that to
That's
decide if that
awesome.
was going to help. And, I found out things that I didn't know about, learning about
Yeah.
different types of medicine, Eastern medicine, etc., through my journey with coping with illness. And I think even if it's not perfect, there's
Mhm.
something valuable in learning what works for you and what doesn't.
Yeah, and everyone's so different, right?
Yeah, completely. My next question is for our listeners. What OCD resources, especially free and accessible ones, would you like to share?
Well, I actually have a pretty short answer for this because on my blog, I have a dedicated resource page that includes organizations such as the International OCD Foundation and much more. So before I blabber on about that, just go check it out.
Wonderful. Yes, I'm going to link all of your, hyperlinks and URLs down in the description. And I did check out your page, which is wonderfully created, by the way. So I applaud you for that.
Thank you.
My next question is lighthearted. Tell us 3 fun facts about yourself.
Okay, well, number one, everyone knows this about me who knows me. I'm an insane dog lover, and they have always been a part of my life. I currently own one dog myself, an English Lab, and in my family in total, I have 2 dogs and 2 cats. So that is 4 animals. That is a lot. Sometimes I feel like I live on a farm. Number 2, I am a figure skater. It's always been a big part of my life. Figure skating has helped me a lot through my recovery, and kind of like when I step on the ice, I feel like everything just like goes away, and it's really nice. I used to be competitive with that sport, but now I'm just doing it for like a leisurely activity. And number 3, I absolutely love the field of medicine, and I find it really fascinating. I think because of all my experiences with my mental health illness, and also I have scoliosis. So with that too, and being through so many doctor's appointments and being at the hospital so often, that's really just piqued my interest for medicine. And that's something I want to go into when I'm older. Yeah.
Yeah, amazing. I do think that many people who deal with mental illness or physical illness have a different take on medicine because they have that, personal intrinsic motivation.
Yeah.
And I just wanted to say, figure skating is one of our family's favorite sports to watch
Oh,
during the Olympics.
really?
Yeah, we're a South Korean family, so we're big fans of Yoona Kim, the Korean figure skater.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah,
Yeah,
so
love her.
for sure. My last question was, what are 3 takeaway points you'd like to share with the audience or the readers?
So I'd say, first of all, there's nothing to be ashamed of about having a mental health illness. I know that's easier said than like done, but really there's nothing to be ashamed of. Yeah, really nothing. Number 2, in order to have a successful recovery, you really need to accept help as much as you don't want to. This is something that I said previously that I've struggled with a lot. I'm very stubborn and I do not like accepting help, but that's something I've learned that I have to do if I want to get better. And number 3, don't be afraid to try something new, whether it is a new therapy or medication, because you never know how much that may impact your life. And as I said before, I've had incredible results with medications in the past, which has like completely like gotten rid of my OCD. So I can't stress enough how like important it is to keep an open mindset about things that you necessarily don't know too much about, because your doctors and your psychiatrists and psychologists know what's best for you because they have been studying that illness for their whole life, really.
Wonderful. Well, that perfectly concludes this episode of Amplifying Voices. And I will link everything that was shared today in the description box and on my Instagram page. Thank you to everyone who listened to today's podcast. And please follow at Mindful Coping for information about mental health disorders. And also check out Madeleine's account at That's So OCD on Instagram. Contact me at rhys.mindfulcoping@gmail.com for questions, concerns, and comments. And stay tuned for more specials. Thank you and have a wonderful day.
Isn't it funny? We came to that. I thought I won you over, but you were holding back. Isn't it funny? You could not care less. How you took those words back, now I'm just a mess. I'm running away from escaping it.